This is Jamie Dyer welcoming you to another edition of Renford Rewatched. It's been a while, but let's crack on, shall we? This is Series 1, Episode 9 that we shall be talking about today, entitled Down the Drain. I'm joined by my wife, Andrea. Let's go on with the discussion, shall we? This is the episode where Eddie calls in an accountant, and it has a knock-on effect to Ronnie Supra's Rappin' Ronnie's Rockin' Roadblock. Yeah, it's a fun episode. It's got a great ending, but perhaps is one of those where they're not entirely sure what the show is supposed to be at this point. There's a lot of experimentation, and personally, I find that in trying to do some character building with, so far, the one-dimensional Ronnie, the rest of the rejects are not really acting as they normally would. Certainly a couple of characters I can think of. So the episode begins with Eddie talking to his accountant, played by Jeffrey Yudikoff is the name that's given on here. As far as I can tell, he hasn't, Jeffrey Yudikoff, as far as I can tell, he hasn't had any other credits on television, only the rejects. He would go on to appear in a further 3 episodes, which I'm sure I shall recap in the future. I actually thought that Jeffrey did a good job here, despite being a stereotypical character, and despite being a one-note character as well, like for this one purpose.
That is pretty wild, isn't it? That, you know, he's not listed anywhere as having any other credits, because as you say, he did a really great job, and it is a one-dimensional character, but it's almost so on point the way he plays it that it is perfect anyway.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I've seen him somewhere before.
Yes.
Like, I feel like I've seen him in Seinfeld or something.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, like one of those like American sitcoms, because he's got that kind of vibe about him where you feel like he's more established than maybe IMDb knows. I mean, maybe he's under a pseudonym. Maybe it's another actor. I mean, please do tell me. I'd love to know if this guy has been in anything else, because against Alex Norton, in this, you know, it's very funny. They bounce off each other really nicely.
That is fun, isn't it? Actually seeing the Eddie character interact with another adult.
Yes, because you don't normally see it. Only Priscilla.
Yeah.
Really. I am slightly confused because it seems like Priscilla is the one that forced this accountant into their lives, and yet she's not the one talking. But in her not talking to him and in Eddie dealing with it, you see how almost clueless Eddie is towards the money-making business side. You kind of see his character build out a bit more as somebody who just likes people, likes to serve people.
Definitely. And I guess alongside the character development of Ronnie in this episode, you're also getting some Eddie development, aren't you?
Very much so. You kind of get to see his motivation a lot more, because there's hardly any customers in this thing. You know, there's always like the rejects, and there's someone in a booth, and like occasionally for a joke you see someone at the desk, you know, and they walk out for whatever reason. I think with this first scene, I think it's a bit unusual to start it with Eddie, because normally it starts in the field or something. And the fact that it has a knock-on to the entire episode. And basically what happens in this scene is that Eddie is told that the business is basically on its last legs, that they have to do something. And so he gets them to put a sign up to say, call in the tabs and you know, get some things flowing. And the sign that he gets him to put up says, don't ask for credit as a refusal may offend. Which is quite a funny little sight gag there. We see him pin it up and the credits roll, and then we see Vinny talking to Ronnie on SportsView. And Ronnie is basically himself at this point, because Vinny is asking the question, does Ronnie Supra's money make the world go round? And to be honest, by the end of the episode, well, middle of the episode, you probably say yes to that question. But in this, he conforms to the usual character of Ronnie, that one-dimensional, what's it about, man? You know, that sort of style-obsessed, one-dimensional character. And you find out that he's organising this event called Rappin' Ronnie's Rockin' Roadblock, which is a funny name. I mean, they have... There's nothing funnier than something where all the letters are the same in the thing. And the fact that he's thought of it himself, and like, you can imagine him in his bedroom, trying to think up this name, and he's like, Rappin' Ronnie's Rockin' Roadblock. And he like builds it up to this huge event that sounds like it's bigger than Glastonbury. Absolutely huge. Because, you know, he's seemingly swimming with money at this point. It's a really expensive operation. It sounds like they're going to close down a street. It sounds like, you know, this big event. And I love how at the end of the scene, you see how almost sloppy Ronnie is with his money, because Vinny's light blows and goes, oh, no, not the lights again. And Ronnie's like, I'll get them for you. He doesn't even hesitate. And so you get a thing that basically he's throwing his money around to this. It changes then. It goes on to the cafe where we hear the Rejects singing Monty Python's Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. Now, I don't know about you, but I felt when watching it, Ronnie's just built up this event to like this massive thing where like someone's on a world tour and they're happy to stop it to be at this event. You know, this is a humongous event. Sounds like it's basically Live Aid or something, right? Huge. And there are the Rejects. You know, some people who play on a football team on a Saturday afternoon auditioning for this event.
It doesn't quite make sense, does it?
Not entirely, but it is that thing where it's like it's setting up for the thing at the end, you know, for that saving thing at the end, no matter how bizarre it is. But yeah, Ronnie's a bit of a D in this scene. He doesn't he's not grateful. He's just, I mean, he's doing the Steve Bruce thing, and or the Steve Barnes thing, depending at, that's a reference to a book that Steve Bruce wrote, a series of books he wrote in the 90s, where Ronnie's got a girl on each arm, essentially, sitting there like some kind of media tycoon, like an entertainment presario. And it's a funny image. And what you see is Ronnie basically telling them, no way ever will you do this? And you're like, but dude, they're your friends. You could have done it a bit nicer than that.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, it gives a little bit of a clue almost to what's coming, because I suppose in a way that scene is kind of reinforcing the idea that with Ronnie, everything is style over substance. It's all promising the earth when that's not in any way what he's going to deliver.
No, it's kind of it's a bit like what Jason does sometimes, where he like overdoes things.
Yeah, over promising and like building up, exaggerating.
Yeah, what you might call the Jay Cartwright effect.
Yeah.
In betweeners reference there. So yeah, Eddie speaks to Ronnie and tries to call in the tab, and basically, you can tell that Eddie's not happy about this. He's basically being forced by this accountant to call in this tab because Ronnie's been buying a lot of stuff. He's been buying food for people. And, you know, in order to call this in, like, Eddie is going to have a payday, essentially. Like, this is going to help towards it. But you kind of see a tiny bit of Ronnie almost die away a little bit from this moment.
Yeah, because doesn't Eddie show him like a piece of paper with the amount on it, and you kind of see Ronnie shrink back into himself at the idea that this is going to mess up something else.
Yeah, you do. And then you skip to the next scene and you're in a dressing room, which I don't think we've been in too much. So in this scene, Jason is basically miffed that Ronnie would talk to them in that way, you know, basically go, what absolute rubbish, essentially. And Bruno agrees, and he calls it Ronnie's ridiculous rubbish show, which is funny. But Bruno in this episode is on fire, isn't he? Like, this is an episode that is somewhat lacking in some laughs, really. It tries, but Bruno delivers with this because it kind of has a different thing. It's focusing, and it's not to say it's not funny. It's just that it's focusing in a different area, as we shall get to. You know, it's a lot more serious in its intent. And I like that basically the three lads here, Jason, Bruno, and Ben, are agreeing with each other that, like, it isn't fair. But you see, Ben then has this view that, like, well, it's still going to be a great night out, you know. And I love how it all boils down to, like, girls and, you know, that type of thing. Very teenagery stuff. There's that kind of dialogue, you know, that makes it feel more genuine, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And there is something nice about rooting it in that kind of, that part of the teen experience in a way, because sometimes some elements of the show can be quite fantastical when they are over talking themselves and they're building things up and exaggerating and making all their plans and everything. That can feel, I guess, unrealistic in a sense. So it is nice to just see that kind of real feeling, I think, between them.
Definitely. Before we get to the girls, none of them nuns joke, where Bruno says, "I don't know any nuns." I mean, this is the one episode, I think, where Bruno doesn't break character. Normally, at some point, you hear Barry Grade come out, and he, you know, and you hear him in that Brummy accent.
There is one moment, I think he says like one sentence at some point near to the end of the episode.
Is there? I did not notice that.
Yeah, just a tiny one. I can't remember exactly what the line is, but it's sort of, generally he does it when his point almost is being disregarded anyway, doesn't he? It's kind of like a throwaway, I give up sort of thing.
Well, I do feel like in this episode, Bruno's disregarded quite a lot. He goes off into these like flights of fancy because we know that he's not really Italian. And like the others just start talking over him.
Yeah.
That happens in at least one of these scenes. Now, let's get to a serious scene here. A serious scene, because we see Ronnie here walking down the corridor, right? And he's rehearsing a bad news speech in different ways about how the roadblock is still going to happen. He still wants to believe it's going to happen. And he tries to convince himself that he's the coolest dude. And then he gets shoved out of the way by someone running down the hall. Bruno, Ben, and Jason then slam the door on him without realizing. And I love how they don't see him. They don't see him. You know, he's almost hitting the bottom emotionally, and he's trying to climb himself up, going, no, I'm still good. I'm still up there. This hasn't set me back. And then he gets hit in the door by his own friends.
Exactly that. It's almost that speech that he's trying to find the words for are like him trying to reach out to them for support and to help him pick himself up, isn't it? And then, like you say, then he's pushed aside by them. As
this happens, you hear the other three come through and they start talking about what Ronnie can buy them because, you know, they hear that he's promised Ronnie some lights. And so even Ben, you know, this is very out of character for Ben. He's like, well, you can get some of my poetry published. You're like, Ben would never do that.
No.
I didn't feel that. Anyway, that's the way I always read the character, that he was always like the voice of reason, along with Robin sometimes, you know.
Definitely. And I think that's where, for me, maybe the episode falls a little bit flat, is that you start getting these moments when some characters are not behaving the way that they normally would. Definitely, I would have put Ben in the camp of being much more sensitive and thoughtful and kind, rather than just selfish and thinking of what he can get out of him.
Well, he's kind of going along with the lads at this point, and really,
I guess
he hasn't been that. He's been the one in the other side of the field, reciting poetry to himself.
Yes.
Or he's been the one like shushing Jason when things like this happen.
Yeah.
And Bruno is always in the middle. He's on the fence, He kind of goes whoever's shouting the loudest.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
I love it in this scene when Bruno says he doesn't want anything from little Ronald. And he does go on to say he wants a bigger bowl of pasta at, nothing except a bigger bowl of pasta at Graceland's. But you see, that's what we're talking about, isn't it? That I guess it's trying to ram home Ronnie really is on his own, that he's built up this reputation that's almost doing the opposite of what he wanted it to do.
Yes, I suppose that is kind of the essence of it, isn't it? That he's been hoping by splashing his money about all the time that he's almost buying himself friends. But what actually happens is it puts distance between them. So then when he really needs them, all they see is his money.
And at the end of that scene, Ben says they're going to get Ronnie to buy them some food, and it's like, wow, okay. Then we see Vinny come through, and Ronnie's standing there, and he asks what Ronnie is doing behind the door, and he says he's thinking, and Vinny makes a joke, and he senses something is wrong and asks what the matter is, and Ronnie isn't clear. And the two kind of have a back and forth until it transpires he's thinking about money. And Vinny asks, when has money ever been a problem for Ronnie? Well, Ronnie says everyone expects him to buy him things. Vinny confirms that it's because he always has. He's always bought people stuff. So they kind of come to expect it, I guess. And Ronnie points out that people don't always say hi. They just expect him to pay for chips and all that stuff, And Vinny kind of questions him and says, well, why don't you say no? Ronnie kind of says, well, it never stops. He can't say anything because it's always going on,
I suppose what we see is that he's accidentally got himself into this cycle where he initially splashes it around in order to keep his friends close, and he wants maybe to look impressive and have a certain amount of status, but then he's realizing that actually he's trapped himself as just being that he now wants to move beyond it, but he's sort of made a rod for his own back in a way.
Definitely. Yeah. Because even Vinny in this scene, he's trying to be understanding, but at the same time, he's like, why don't you come and tell us all about your event sort of thing? And, he sort of hints, well, you'll find out, what happened to that or what's going to happen to that. And the next scene, we see Eddie close up with this accountant, and he says that it's because of him that Ronnie has had to cancel his party. And of course, Jeffrey is absolutely opposite of this. He doesn't agree with this. He's just told him to call in the tab, and it's about making money. And I love that Eddie calls him a bean counter and says he has no idea, because it's not just about making money to Eddie, it's about people and serving people. They start sort of going in a back and forth, and they're basically coming down to the fact that if Eddie doesn't do something, then Graceland is finished. He has to increase his revenues and decrease costs. And Eddie doesn't understand. And I love this little thing where, like, Jeffrey is explaining it to him.
Oh, yes. Is that moment when he's like, he explains it in what he thinks is a simple way, and Eddie kind of just looks blank, like, no, still not with you. And then he has to dumb it down even more.
Exactly.
Yes, that's a nice little moment.
The next scene, the rejects are seen walking down the street, and Vinny explains to them that he doesn't think that Ronnie will be buying them any more food. That's pretty much over. And the others laugh, and Vinny says he won't come because of the expectation. Bruno says that Ronnie isn't his friend because he buys him pasta, but because he gets him a newspaper every day. I mean, it just gets worse and worse, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just really hammering home this, we only want him because he has money.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we're digging ourselves deeper into this.
And there's all these little tantalizing moments like that where you think, oh yeah, they're going to say something nice. And then they just carry on down the same road. And you're like, no.
I know. Especially as Vinny says, well, you should buy him something. Because they're like, well, friends are supposed to buy them things.
Yeah.
You're like, but when have you ever done it? And Jason's like, well, that's not the point. It's like, goodness. So we cut back to Eddie talking about the revenue thing with Jeffrey. And basically, they've got to organise something to get money in, right, to get more customers. Jeffrey suggests karaoke. Eddie wonders about an Elvis night. It's pointed out that the last time that he had an Elvis night, he actually lost money. And you think, how bad does it have to be for that to happen? How bad? I mean, I think isn't it a previous episode where Robin is seen miming to, well, it was a Jerry Lee Lewis record.
Yes.
But it was supposed to be an Elvis night. Yeah. They're saying that actually lost money. I saw the episode. It was packed. How can it lose money if it's packed?
Well, I guess it only makes money if people buy things while they're there.
Well, that is true. That is true. I've organised events in pubs and stuff, and they do kind of have this, people can come, but they've got to buy a drink kind of thing. They can't just turn up and watch the event. They've got to have more than the ticket sales. We then see the rejects talking, and Jason says that Ronnie pays for everything because that's him, and he'll be back to normal soon because he likes paying for everything. Oh, how little you know him, Jason. We've seen a glimpse that maybe, like we said, Ronnie was kind of building himself up into an image, and now he's trying to build himself out of it. Because of what happened with Eddie in the tab, really, isn't it? Next, the rejects are served meals by Eddie, and he says it'll be £8, and the accountant kind of gives him a look, and Eddie then changes it to £10, which gives you the impression that he's actually been knocking down the price of food for these kids all this time. No wonder he's been losing money. And they ask to put it on Ronnie's tab, and Eddie points to a sign that says, we have an agreement with the bank. They don't serve food, and we don't make loans, which again is another great sight gag. That's great. I think I had to pause it the first time I saw it recently to understand what it meant. That it's like, okay, this is a really almost a nicer way. It's like Eddie's reworded the previous sign to kind of be a bit nicer and a bit more like, this isn't a bank, like you have to pay now.
Yeah, it's almost that like it adds a bit more context for the potential customer, doesn't it? So it's a bit gentler, almost less of a demand and more of a request.
Yes, I think so. I love how Jason doesn't understand and he just asks it again.
Yeah.
Like, like a child. Very sort of childlike thing. I think we found that with our son where like if he doesn't get what he wants immediately, he just asks again.
As if you haven't understood the question, that's why you didn't give the answer that they were looking for, yeah.
Yes. So Ronnie doesn't have a tab anymore. And I love how Robin, who hasn't really been in it up until this point, it's been very like lads. And she's like, well, he doesn't have to pay for it. And Vinny kind of agrees, even though he's been a little bit on the fence at this point, I think. And Jason questions the situation. And did you hear Ben squirt ketchup really loudly?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know whether that was intentional, but he does it. So we cut to the park. We're at the park now. We're in familiar territory, right? There's hardly been any football in this episode at all, is there? Like, it's been so like focused on character and getting from one point to another. Like, there's no football in this episode at all.
No.
Robin says that they'll have to tell Ronnie that it's not all about money. And I love how Bruno in this scene just goes off into an absolute thing, talking about his brothers and sisters.
Yeah, he's pretty much carrying the entire comedic load of this episode, I think.
I think so. There's a great line later that we shall get to. But Robin points out that Ronnie thinks they just like him for the money. And Jason, as usual, rubbishes this before a ball is thrust at him by Ben. And the others are on Robin's side, with Ben suggesting they should buy him something. Jason disagrees because Ronnie has everything. They observe that he is a reject and he should be there with them. Ben agrees by saying that he's their friend. He then knees the ball out of shot, which Terry Stoker picks up. And we hear that music, that club to death music that says Terry Stoker is here. And it's building on more jeopardy. It's like we already know that Ronnie perhaps doesn't have the money anymore, that he's kind of avoiding everybody because this party's been cancelled. But now we're adding in the razors for a bit of added jeopardy in there. And Tom Weller plays this part really well, I think. Like this really like menacing teenager where it's like, do you know where he is? Donnie, where it's like he's tough, but he said something wrong. So almost it puts that. You imagine if like he played it even more menacing. They have to have some comedy in there somewhere.
They do, and it's kind of exposing a little bit of vulnerability, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, he is only a kid as well.
Exactly. And he asks for Donnie, the nerd who thinks he's cool, the one with the party. And I love the way that Ben, in true Ben style, Ben is suddenly Ben, where he's like, yeah, dapping Donnie's docking dodoc, And I love the glee in his face as he says it.
Yes.
Almost like it's an improvisation, but we know it isn't. It's scripted. But it's such like, that's Ben. Ben as a character is here.
Yes, exactly. And suddenly that's satisfying for a moment, isn't it?
Yeah. And so Terry says that the party's been cancelled and the others can't believe it and they want their money back. And then we see Ronnie explain to Vinny that he had no choice to cancel it because his dad said no, and the payment to Eddie meant he had no money for the party. So he wasn't sure about telling the rejects, but Vinny said they'll understand. We then cut to the rejects who approach Ronnie, and basically they're peeved. They are not, being supportive friends. They are really upset that this thing, this massive event has been cancelled.
Yeah, and I guess it just really hammers it home. It really emphasises like that massive distance between them. They're like pushing him away even further.
I sort of hate how scathing they are of him. Like, they've been talking it over and they're like, he's our friend and stuff. And then suddenly when it's cancelled, they're like, oh, it's a disgrace. It's awful, and it's embarrassing. It's, and it's really piling it on. And actually, it leads to one of the best speeches in the entire thing, which we shall get to. But a couple of things that I noticed. I think someone in the writing staff or whoever is involved in it must have been a classic comedy fan, or maybe some of the cast are, because Bruno says that Ronnie mucked things up this time, which is a little bit, that's a fine mess you've got us into. Maybe that's a bit of a tenuous thing. And then we see Ben doing an impression of Ronnie while doing an Eric Morecambe impression. See that with the glasses?
I didn't notice that, no.
He goes, it's the baddest thing. And it's like, He does like the thing with the glasses.
The Eric Morecambe up and down sort of, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't see that.
No, I didn't notice that.
I don't know whether that's just something he did on the spur of the moment to almost make it funnier, or whether someone on the team went, the Eric Morecambe thing, you need to be doing something while you're saying that to like emphasize the impression that you're doing. But I guess as well, because Ronnie always wears shades, it's emphasizing that he's doing the impression of him. I think that's what it is, because they say that later, don't they? Where Ronnie's like, how'd you know it was me? It's like, you always wear shades.
Exactly, almost like ramming home that he doesn't seem like him to them because he's not wearing all his flashy gear, which always includes shades.
That is true. So basically, they all leave. Robin kind of says, well, they'll calm down in time, And Ronnie sat with Vinny, and that music kind of comes up. It's kind of ramped up at this point. And he explains he doesn't have the money because he spent it all on posters and paying off the tab. So he can't pay the lads back. He can't pay the Razors back for their tickets and stuff because he's just mismanaged the money and everything's happened unexpectedly. And we see the Razors coming towards the camera, and Vinny and Ronnie run behind a bush. And we see Vinny get his camera out, and he begins commentating, right? And Ronnie tells him to shut up. And then Vinny asks what he's going to do. And Ronnie explains that when something happens to the other rejects, everyone helps. Like with Bruno, you've got the limo and you've got the Godfather, which is a reference to a previous episode. But when it's him, nobody helps him. And I love the despair in his voice. It's the best speech in the entire thing, because it's like, that is what this boils down to. This is Ronnie all by himself. He is there by himself. Nobody helps him. And it is true that usually everybody would club together and come up with a different scenario. So Bruno would do something Italian, Jason would do something macho or, a little bit naive. We'd see Ben do something with poetry or something that's a little bit more
intellectual.
But in this episode, that isn't about that. It's like they're commenting on their usual narrative structure. And they're like, but when it comes to Ronnie, we can't have that because, when it comes to losing money, what would any of the rejects know about that? That's not something they can help with. Because with Ben, it was about wooing a girl. With Bruno, it was about thwarting off bullies. And yeah, it is, in this case, about getting rid of bullies. But the problem is the narrative has put the rejects in the camp with the bullies because they're angry with them. So they can't help in this.
No, and like you say, because it's about money, there's no other way around that, is there? Like, unless they've got the amount of money that he needs, there's nothing they can do. So standing around and coming up with their usual, like you say, different approaches to things, I guess wouldn't help. But nevertheless, it's still heartbreaking when Ronnie points it out. You're like, oh gosh, yeah, he's all on his own. Normally they're all clubbing together.
In this case, no, it's not happening. It's not happening. And we see him, go for everything. And well done to Adam Dean for this scene. Like, it's really, really well done with that, in something where a lot of the other characters are kind of off balance a bit with their usual selves. He is fleshing his character out, and so I guess with one negative comes a positive, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. It does balance itself out, doesn't it? And as unsatisfying as some of the other characters are in this case, it's a really nice contrast to have almost that space filled by a more rounded version of Ronnie.
Yeah, and that's what this scene does. It's that aha scene of like, he is more than just flash and style.
Yeah, now we see who you really are, kind of thing.
Exactly. But like I say, it has to come at the expense of the rest of the characters.
Yeah.
that's what it just. That's my opinion. You might disagree, dear listener. So we go back to Graceland's, and Eddie tells Bruno that they can sing "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life" at his karaoke night, and I like how they're basically like, no. It's like, oh, Graceland isn't big enough for you. You hang out there every day, but you don't want to do it there, you know. But we find out that Eddie has taken over Ronnie's event. So all the razors, all their tickets are now for this event in Graceland. And yeah, I know, it's a teenage comedy. It's a great teenage comedy. It's probably one of the best ever made. But that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? Considering the stage in which Ronnie, you know, put it up high of like, this is going to be like the biggest night of the 20th century. And then Eddie's like, I'm going to take over the gig for him and I'm going to do a karaoke night.
Yeah, there's two ways that you can look at it, I think. That one of them is, yes, that's quite ridiculous and makes no sense at all. But the other side is, I think maybe it's what they generally do, which is that a lot of the Rejects plans and ideas and desires and everything are so overblown, and they often pursue them in quite fantastical ways, or certainly plan them in quite fantastical ways and unrealistic. And so I guess maybe the thing is that Ronnie talked it up to being such a massive, massive thing, but
it wasn't going to be in the end.
No. Well, he was holding the auditions at the cafe, so.
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that actually what the reality would have been much smaller, but they would have been happy with it anyway. I feel like there is actually an event organised later on in another series that we shall get to. It's worth noting before we move on that Bruno at this point is talking about the razors ripping off Ronnie's little arms and legs or whatever. And it's the way that Paul Paris does it that is so like natural, isn't it?
It was like my favourite moment of the episode, I think.
I think we had to stop it in that moment. And I think I asked you, like, what was it? And you were like, it's the, you know, the little arms and little legs. Like it's like the
Don't
rhythm.
You want to save Ronnie's little arms and little legs or whatever it was? It was just
it's like the rhythm of it was just so
so good,
brilliant. And it's just great that in an episode that's full of drama and perhaps lacking in the amount of laughs that it normally would have, he is there as the cartoon to just amp up the scene just a little bit with comedy, because otherwise these characters would be just unlikable by the end, because there's a lot of like, well, I don't want to because I'm, you know, Ronnie said this about us and Ronnie said that, you know, and it's very sort of like, I know Jason would normally talk like that, but in this instance, it's like one thing after another.
Yeah, you expect them eventually to come round, don't you? And be like, oh no, okay, we are being unreasonable. Maybe we should help him. Maybe we should be understanding. But they just don't. So I think that moment from Bruno, it's very funny, but it's also quite heartening because he's there like, wait a second, shouldn't we help him? Basically.
Exactly. So we see Vinny outside Ronnie's house. And he goes up and he knocks on the door with his camera there. And then Ronnie answers the door. And I like how Vinny just says, hi, Ronnie. And he's like, how'd you know it was me? And it's like, he hasn't done anything to disguise himself.
It's quite cartoony in a way, isn't it?
He hasn't done anything to disguise himself. But they explain that the Rejects have sorted all the thing out. But at this point, Ronnie's too embarrassed. He's too far gone, you know, with this stuff. He's kind of done with it. I like how Vinny tries to invite him to Graceland, and they start walking. They're like, oh, let's walk. And I like how he's got like a trench coat thing on, and he pulls out like a spanner I think it is, isn't it? He's like, I helped my dad with plumbing. And it's so like unconvincing. It's brilliant acting because it's so unconvincing of the way he's like, I helped my dad with plumbing. You know, like,
Yeah.
it's like even he's unsure about what he's saying.
And
at
yet,
this point.
like, he knows that he has, like, he's convinced himself he has no choice.
Yeah, that this is where he ends up because, you know, the world of show business is just too rough for him.
Yeah.
And so he basically walks off, and it's like, why did you take this walk with him then? Why didn't you just tell him this out, you know, at your house? Why did we take this walk, you know, thinking that he was on his way to Gracelands as a viewer? That's what you're thinking, I guess. That he somehow come round or that he'll see something. And basically, Vinny explains to the others about Ronnie and what's happened. I like how they try and take the credit for this whole thing. They're like, well, we helped him, and that's what he does, you know. And it's like, Eddie helped him. Eddie's the one who took the event over, as little as it seems, you know, compared to what Ronnie had planned, perhaps, what Ronnie had built up. But Eddie had helped them. Eddie had saved him. And it kind of irked me a little bit that...
They still want to take the credit for it.
Yeah. So Vinny says that Ben's trying to persuade Ronnie to come to the karaoke, and the others, they just think, oh, let's just have a good time. And I like how we have a little cutaway here to Bob Wilson and Jim Rosenthal, right? Jim Rosenthal, talking about the karaoke night, and Bob wants to sing My Way. I mean, it has nothing to do with the episode. We've hardly mentioned football at this point. But it's it's funny, but it's also a bit of a gear shift.
Yes.
From where we were. But that makes it funnier somehow. It's like this clunky gear shift where suddenly we see two football commentators in an episode with no football. Because normally they're there like, you know, and the Renford Rejects are playing against the Renford Rovers. You know, that's their normal function. They pop up and they say like one line. Whereas this, they appear to live in Renford. It's a funny little aside.
I loved it because it was almost framed as if, you know, they finished their broadcast and they're chatting about where they're going afterwards, and they're taking their earpieces out and stuff, and it was just quite satisfying in a way.
And I guess it tells you to shift the focus from Ronnie. It's like, don't think about Ronnie now, think about the karaoke.
That's true, yeah. It kind of warns you that's where we're going now. Where
we end up is Eddie talking to Morris dancers. Right? And he needs a warm-up act. And he gets his accountant to do it. I like how, I mean, Jeffrey's on fire in this episode. He is funny. He's very funny. He's like, I'm an accountant. I'm not a singing seal, you know. Yeah. And Jeffrey goes up and he sings, Hey, Big Spender. And I've written here in my notes, he is stiff and off key.
Yeah.
And he is. And I like how he gets like thrown out, right?
Yes.
And Ronnie sees this and he's embarrassed because he's like, this is how you were supposed to save me, is it? And then we see Terry like come out of the door and like push him up against the wall. And of course I think that music comes up again, doesn't it? It's the Terry Stoker music.
Yeah, that menacing mood.
Yeah. And so he's out there with Robin trying to defend him. And then we cut to inside where Ben asks Eddie what his plan is. And then Stuart appears out of nowhere and tells him to give their money back.
Now, this was so funny because honestly, it took me until probably halfway through the episode to, in the back of my mind, just say to myself, oh, we haven't seen Stuart yet this episode, how weird. And you sort of think, oh, they obviously didn't need him for, you know, to advance the plot in any way. It wouldn't have helped. And then when he pops up at the end like this, you kind of step back and think, oh, wait, but he is the only character where they couldn't make him so self-centered and so like blind to someone else's needs and stuff, because he is always that voice of reason.
Yeah.
And almost the outsider because he doesn't play football.
He doesn't fit into the rest of the episode, really, because half of those scenes wouldn't have happened when Ben, Jason, and Bruno were like, this event, whatever, how dare he with our song or whatever. I think Stuart would have been there going, well, no, he's got this idea for this, and we should just support him because he's a reject. Like, he would have been that voice of reason.
Definitely.
And so the fact he's not there until the end, I mean, goodness knows what he was doing. He wasn't even at rehearsal. Like, he wasn't even at
the practice they had.
The practice either.
No.
I don't think he was.
No, we hadn't seen him at all. He was just nowhere.
I know.
So they're just popping up. Very nice little comedic thing there.
So Stuart tells Eddie that they should give the money back. And Eddie says, well, he can't because of cash flow problems. But, there's a bit of a misunderstanding there. And Robin informs them what's happening to Ronnie. Jason goes to jump over the thing. He's like, no one does that to a reject or whatever. And Eddie tells them that violence is not the answer. Eddie suggests doing their number, but Jason isn't keen. And Eddie manages to talk them round. So Terry is still gripping Ronnie, saying that he was promised a rocking roadblock, but got Eddie's karaoke extravaganza, and he wants his money back. Eddie interjects and says that he wants to be entertained. And I love the way that Tom does the reading of what? By those Morris dancers or a singing accountant? So good. So good. Eddie explains that it was the warm-up act. And Terry says that it had better be good or there'll be trouble. And so Eddie introduces them singing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. And they're dressed in shiny jackets with hats, shiny trousers and canes. And I like how halfway through this, because it's not musical theatre, is it? It's not, the way they're singing it is very natural, like you would at a karaoke. It's not like a musical theatre performance.
No, and yet obviously they are all dancing a sort of rehearsed dance together. Yes. In their outfits. It's sort of kind of like cabaret, I guess.
I guess so. I like that they cut halfway through and Terry looks impressed.
Yeah.
With what he's seeing. Almost...
I know. And for some reason, everyone else in the place starts going wild as if it's a pop group.
Yes.
It's
a little bit...
Why?
It's a little bit bizarre, isn't it?
Like, suddenly that justifies the money they paid for the ticket.
Yeah, this one act. I take it they've got another number they're going to sing, or is that the only one? I mean, Stuart does get up halfway through.
Looking bewildered.
Looking very bewildered.
Stuart's basically us in this situation, isn't he? He's the audience.
Yeah.
What's happening here?
I mean, to be fair, as a kid watching this when I was like 7, 8, 9, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's like, oh, they're doing a dance number. That's fun. It's
I can see that, yeah.
Old school and, after like helping their friend and stuff, or they're helping him out of that tricky situation. And I can see if I spoke to 100 fans, I think probably over half of them, in my estimation, would probably say this was like one of those iconic moments. Because really, whenever I talk to anyone, the iconic moments are in the third series. It seems like second and third. This is one of those moments where when I see it, I go, that's the Renford Rejects. Like, that's one thing I remember from it. It's so memorable. But maybe because it has nothing to do with football.
You say that, but I suppose in a way, it's their version of a triumph in an episode without a football match, isn't it?
Yes.
And they're even winning over the Razors.
Yeah.
As well, because it's almost that the Razors are defeated by the Rejects singing a song. Like, yeah, it is that win-lose, the threat of losing and then overcoming it by all pulling together as a team at the last minute, essentially. So instead of that on the pitch, it's just happening on the stage.
And so we see that Ronnie's even having a good time.
Yeah.
And so it fades down and, everyone's sort of congratulating Eddie on a great party or whatever, Stuart does it. And that's pretty much it, isn't it? That's over. That's the end of the episode. What are your overall opinions of this?
Of the whole episode,
Yeah.
I do think that picking it out of the entire series, which I haven't seen all of, but I've seen like certain picked out episodes through the series.
Yeah.
I would say, in my estimation, it's not one of the strongest, but it definitely has some moments of merit. I guess, I don't know, it's both brilliant and slightly unsatisfying at the end when Eddie's like, we'll just go back to the way I always did things.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens, doesn't it? He basically kicks the accountant out and he's like, I just do what I always did.
Yeah.
It's like, so suddenly the money problems are over.
Yeah.
Is it this one event? Rapping Ronnie saves the day with these tickets he sold to this massive event, and like that saved it. One event. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Like it's not the strongest episode, but at the same time, the character building, and they obviously felt like for this character, they couldn't do the same usual routine. They couldn't go through each thing. They had to do a Ronnie episode eventually. This one gave him an opportunity to act. I think he pretty much goes back to the Ronnie everybody knows afterwards, but in this one you get to see his character fleshed out a bit, so maybe after that you think you don't see him so much as a one-note character anymore. You think, well, no, we've seen what he really thinks, that this is actually just an act.
Because we know it's there underneath, even if we're not actively seeing it in future episodes, I suppose.
Yeah, and the thing about a first series is they're going to be trying things.
Yeah.
You know, they've tried doing the various comedic situations. They've tried episodes where it's really comedic. They've tried ones with lots of football. They've tried ones with big guests. They've tried ones where they've gone off the balance a bit and tried something a bit more outlandish. This, I felt, compared to their usual style, was one of those episodes where it tried to do something else and it's experimenting to see how far it can push it.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And it does have a lot of the elements that most episodes have. It's just that they're executed in a bit of a different way, aren't they? But like, you know, Eddie gets to do his almost parental input to kind of help them, as well as helping himself, of course. But, you know.
Yeah, I think that pretty much helps to build his character. And really, he's the one who benefits the most, because you get to see why he does what he does, why he helps these kids. And like you say, he's a parental figure to them. And at least by the end of the episode, they've managed to save little Ronnie's arms and legs. So, is Down the Drain one of your favourite episodes? Do let me know by tweeting at @ReRenford. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with us, or do you have a completely different opinion? The next episode will be discussing Series 1, Episode 10, Just the Ticket. Until then, see you for another episode of Renford Rewatched. Bye-bye for now.